is the Captiva. Welcome to the monthly board meeting of the Captiva Erosion Prevention District this Monday, November 8th, 2021 at 1 p.m. The meeting will now come to order. I would like to begin the meeting with a moment of silence. So our dean's super friendly guy, Harry Kaiser, some of you didn't get to know. Did you know Harry Kaiser? He was nearby. Harry was a kind person, and let's have a moment of silence in respect for a gentleman whose heart always was in Captiva. Great. Okay, so do we have any commissioners? I have to ask this. Is this a protocol that we have to ask the people who are on the screen right now that they wish to appear?
Everything in your script is protocol.
Okay, but it's a legal thing, right? It's not like you do
It is
roll call.
It is a transparent thing.
Okay, do we have any commissioners requesting to appear remotely?
This is John Sylvia.
Hey, John. Is Mike there? No. All right. Can you throw up the participant screen? I just want to see who the participants are, because I'm not on my own thing. No Brooks, Carrie Schumann, Laura, Nicole. All right. Two of the attendees also. Okay, do we, we need a motion to let Harry appear.
John Sylvia.
John Sylvia, Jesus, I'm sorry, John. That's like,
Can we get a motion?
I'll make that. No, I can't. I'm chairman.
No.
We can make motions as a chairman. It's okay.
I make the motion.
Do we have a second?
Is John? Either that or the meeting's canceled. What's it going to be? Dick, you don't want to make the motion?
Do I make a motion on my own appearance?
Chairman Maville has made the motion, and if you would
I
like to
can
make the
second
second,
it.
would you make the second?
Sure.
Okay,
Cool.
thank you, Commissioner Sylvia.
Okay.
Do you want to call the roll?
Okay, and then
We need to
Do you want to call the roll?
roll call.
All right, Chairman Laville,
Present.
Vice Chairman Sylvia,
Here.
Treasurer Pyle,
Here.
Commissioner Mullins here.
I do not see him.
And you have to take a roll call on your motion that Renee made to allow John to appear by Zoom.
We did.
We just did.
We just did.
Oh, I thought you said you were present. I thought you were doing a roll call for who was present. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Let's do the vote. Anyone? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, unanimous passes. You don't have to call names. Okay, so changes to the agenda. Before we proceed, do any?
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
You
Excuse me.
have to do the minutes.
Where? Oh, God,
The minutes?
excuse me. I am so sorry here. It's
Okay.
on the back of the page.
Yes.
Rosie, you can dress me up, but you can't take me to dinner. Okay, approval of minutes, October 11, 2021 board meeting. We will now need to approve the minutes. We have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 11, 2021 meeting. I move approval of the minutes of the October 11, 2021 board meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I also, it passes unanimously, no roll call is necessary. Okay, changes to the agenda. Before we proceed, do any commissioners have changes to the agenda?
I just have one regarding the invoice from Sanibel Captiva Conservation Foundation. The original invoice dated October 14th. I'd like to discuss that particular invoice.
All right, is there a second?
Second,
All right,
Do you want to move it? Do you want to request to put it after public comment, or are you okay to move it to after public comment? We need to decide where you'd like to place it on the
yeah,
agenda,
yeah.
Chairman.
looking here. I'm concerned about after. Let's look here.
It would be my recommendation, you put it after public comment prior to financial reports.
Okay,
Okay?
all right.
Okay, so, yeah, call the vote on that.
All right,
Hold on. You just say motion to approve the
All right, motion to approve
changes to the agenda.
to changes to the agenda.
I'll motion to make that change.
So
to
the
the-
motion is made, now we vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I say nay, but that's no problem. Passes 2-1.
Okay.
All right, so now we go to public commentary. Is there any public comment? Anyone in the video land have something to say?
Hang on,
Anyone?
we'll
I
verify
don't
that.
see any hands. Oh, wait, chat.
Yep, Renee,
Hmm?
we may have some.
Well, up here. Chat.
Sure.
It's, Q&A, Q&A, Tiffany, Rebecca. Your report.
We have a physical quorum to allow virtual attendees.
Can you have Ralph answer that?
Yeah, can you answer that, please?
I think you just voted to allow virtual attendees, if that's the question.
No, the question was, do you have a physical quorum to allow virtual attendees?
If we're required to have a physical,
Are we required?
Well, I think I've explained this before. Technically, you're required. The governor had put an executive order out that allowed virtual quorums. He let that expire without any further extensions and without any explanation as to whether or not the various things that were included in the executive orders could continue or not. One of them is this idea about quorums having to be physically in attendance. Florida statutes does not say that you have to have a physical quorum. The requirement that is alleged for physical quorums arises out of an attorney general opinion interpreting statutes to allow the broadest transparency and ability for the public to attend. Because there is a pandemic still in effect, although it's getting better, hopefully, in Lee County. The positivity rate has gone down below 5 now, I believe. Because we are allowing the public to attend both physically at the Captiva office, and some of you are there, and allowing the public to attend virtually, which allows for even broader public access. And you have 2 members present and a 3rd member who is in Zoom. The majority of you are there. We can proceed with business today, as there's no Florida statute that prohibits it, and there's been no court case ever that says you have to have a physical quorum present. And due to the unique circumstances of the pandemic, it's my opinion that you can hold this meeting and then ratify items at the next meeting at which you have a physical quorum. All statutory requirements for trims, for budgets, for bond referendum, those are all being done in person with a physical quorum present so that they are beyond any challenge, and that banks and the state finance office and everyone else is comfortable with that. Other items that are strictly Captiva, erosion prevention district, what I'll call internal items, or items that are not required for you to do by statute. You can go ahead and hear those today. If you don't want to take an action, you can continue that until the time that you have a next physical quorum, or continue to December. Hopefully you'll have a physical quorum then. at which time you can either take the item up or you can ratify whatever you decide to do today. So you can proceed as you go along. If there's an item that's controversial, you may want to continue that until you have everybody present or a physical quorum present. Also realize that with the loss of Harry Kaiser, we now have lost a tie vote breaker. So it's possible that some items will get a vote of 2-2 if 4 people are here. If 2-2 happens, the item does not pass. You have to have an affirmative vote to pass an item. If you go forward today and it's, say, for example, 2-1, and then you go to ratify it and the person that's not here votes the other way, it would be 2-2 and would not pass. So there is a risk that controversial items may be overturned upon ratification until we have a 5th member either appointed and approved by the board or elected. So those are the parameters you're working under today.
So that answers Mike's question. Mr. Campbell, and for those in the audience, Mike Campbell is, isn't that Steve Patel's assistant?
They work together in natural resources and the county.
And Mike also was responsible for a very famous art project 3 years ago where he had a diver go down and they did photographs with frames in the water. Very cool.
Cool.
So anyway, all right. I hope it answers this question and we know who he is. All right, so let's begin the discussion of the change of the agenda having to do with the invoices, having to do with the turtle relocations. And just, I'd like to sort of give a brief background just as an introductory, because there seems to be the best way to put it, chronological issue with me. I remember the meeting at the SDCF, Ryan had asked and explained that there would be an approximate $650 per turtle nest relocation. And I asked the rest of the board that I thought that was a good number, a fair number and all that. And that Ryan also asked for the turtle research for somewhere in the neighborhood of $40,000 of what they have, or not really clear the exact number. And he explained to us at a prior meeting, or maybe at that meeting, that this could also associate and help future beach renourishments as it might add value to getting costs from federal money. I thought it was a great idea. So I also was enthusiastic about that. And I think we ended it, to the best of my knowledge, that some paperwork would be created and that would be that, and we would be off to moving on to other items. So at the next meeting, to the best of my knowledge, I was in Massachusetts. And when John Sylvia had to take over the meeting because communication was so bad that I couldn't be part of the meeting. And apparently at that time, to the best of my knowledge, Ryan had proposed a minimum 120,000, maximum 170 for the turtle relocation endeavor. And I was kind of befuddled with Jennifer to say, wait a second, we just heard there's going to be anywhere from 100 to 200 nests. And in my head, 100 times 650 or 200, first of all, the minimum is not 120, it would be like 70,000. What are these other costs? What's going on? Monitoring, wait a minute, they monitor every year, they go up and down the beach. We don't, you know, so Jennifer knew within 24 hours that I said, this needs to be cleared up, this needs to be explained, etc. And at that time, so then I guess there were requests made for data to show the hours, and I finally got to see them. And I looked at a lot of it, and I said, I think we should really have a serious chat about this, because I find these numbers, very, a lot excessive. What are we paying for? Little items like $50 every time the beach buggy is used. And every time a meeting would be in attendance with Kelly, it was 1 or 2 hours. And I'm like, wait, she's not over there for 2 hours. What, or it was a minimum charge of a half an hour. So Ryan apparently was tasked by Jennifer, can you back up these numbers? And then I guess he did send something. And then I got a text recently from Ryan asking if we're going to pay it, what's the story, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I haven't seen any numbers. And then it turned out that she did send to an email that I wasn't populating on my phone. The second I got them, I said, we really need to go over these numbers. We need to have a serious discussion because these, we're not an ATM for SCCF. So then Ryan proposed to just say, look, just pay me X, $21,000 less. I won't charge for all the hours spent that we're billing you for. It's $62.50 for Kelly's, back and forth with other firms and this and that. And Jennifer said, could we accept that? And I said, in the spirit of moving things forward, and that was a very rational, reasonable thing to do, to settle on that. And then I guess apparently the bookkeeper went and sent the larger check without the $21,000 discount. And then I said, well, and then we got a thing from Mr. Pyle saying, well, we want to have a meeting about that because they should be paid all of it. And I guess my consternation in the general perspective is that how is it when someone says they're going to do one thing and pay for something that's going to cost X, and then the paperwork comes in and it's not exactly that, or these add-ons, and it really wasn't discussed. I mean, if there was a discussion, say, listen, it's going to be 650 nets, but I want to be paid for all of this. And then I'd say, well, wait a second, which monitoring are we talking about? Are we talking about when you go up and down the beach in the morning? Well, we don't get charged all those other years. What part of that are we adding on? So there was a lot of discussions that should have been negotiated and made. And unfortunately, and it's not Ryan's fault, but the staff went ahead and signed it. The board went ahead and approved it without even remembering that the month before, the paperwork wasn't the proposal. And the second I heard about it, I'm like, whoa, hey, as chairman, it's my job to try to keep things on a straight and narrow. And so basically that is where we are now. And so I think graciously said, let's do this right. Let's have a workshop where we can go over all this, but Commissioner Pyle feels differently. So Commissioner Pyle, the floor is yours.
Well, I approved the original invoice, the October 14th original invoice. And in that invoice was included 14 nights of monitoring due to unexpected plan date modifications. So I definitely do not believe that SCCF's compensation should be reduced or because of the fact that Great Lakes modifying their plans. And that would have been about $10,500 of the $21,000. The other thing has to do with the hours of coordination that were done. And we all remember how many meetings were taking place to try to figure out exactly when the project could start, what needs to be done. The state and local officials had to be worked in coordination. And that amounted to $11,470. I approved this based on the memo of understanding. It appeared that they were due what they had estimated the cost to be, and I approved it. And then, much to my surprise, probably 10 days ago, I got a call from Ryan or an email from Ryan. And I had not heard anything about the fact that these discussions had taken place between the chairman, and Ryan.
That wasn't directed this weekend.
Excuse me?
I hadn't spoken to Ryan vis-a-vis since the last physical meeting. I mean, since the last Zoom meeting.
Yeah, we had an extensive conversation via text.
Oh, right, you're right.
So anyway, I'm just would like to make a motion that we do not change the original invoice, and the original invoice was sent by SCCF October 14th, and that invoice was for $66,970. And that's the motion that I would make as a commissioner. But I would like to have Ryan tell his side of the story here, because there obviously are two sides.
Before
to
that
every story.
happens, there's three sides, his side, her side, and the truth. First of all, you're talking about $11,000 item. I've been talking to her about the $60,000 item with all these charges where to train the personnel. If your electrician comes to the house and he brings an assistant and they get you for $100 bill, well, I have to train my electrician assistant.
Yeah.
I don't pay that.
But
So in other words, the
the
point,
$66,000
right,
was comprised of the $30,000 third payment on the project minimum, $30,000 for that. And there was also the increase in the number of nests over and above
right.
what they planned on. That was $6,000. There's a monitoring that was done and was in the memo of understanding, and that was $9,000.
Was that ever discussed though? What monitoring? I mean, for years, there's monitoring done and we don't pay. These were questions that Jennifer and Ryan, we just wanted an explanation of why are we paying for monitoring that's not specific to the project?
Well,
And these were questions that went unanswered. And yes, Ryan and I did have a conversation. And so you're going to pay me and you're just mad at me. And I'm like, I haven't had the information yet. And I wouldn't even put it. It's like a 10-year-old I was talking to.
could I ask Ryan to respond with his side of the story, please?
No, but one more thing, one last thing, and that is the
This
meeting.
is John. Can I have a comment after Renee?
Yes, John.
Go ahead, Renee. Finish your
Thank
comment. I'll make mine.
All right, thank you. What I didn't like was that Ryan proposed $650 a nest. I said, great. And then he sends a proposal for 120. And if you do the math, if there's 100 nests, which would be the minimum, that's 65,000. Where does the other 50,000 come from? And then if there's 200 nests, so I wanted all that explained, and that was a problem for Ryan. And Jennifer had to really make it very difficult for him. You didn't want to show the hours and this and that. I mean, so the whole point is it got very contentious unnecessarily because Ryan was challenged. And,
No,
you know,
because you're being
those-
revisionist. You're being revisionist with your story.
Thank you.
But
Okay, so let me make my comment before Ryan makes his. Someone, and I think it was Renee, mentioned that the accountant or somebody went ahead and paid the bill. What was the authorization for that action?
I approved it, and I assumed that Jennifer had approved it before the invoice went out. But I approved it, and then found out later that that approval had been I don't know if you could say withdrawn or whatever, but then apparently it was paid. It was paid anyway for some reason.
Jennifer, can you explain what happened?
Yes, on 10/20, Mr. Pyle sent back approved from the original invoice. I did not approve it because when I had sent it to Renee, he contacted me, my chairman contacted me and told me that we couldn't pay it yet because he didn't approve it. He wanted to be in on all approvals moving forward. And so I did not approve it and was trying to get some more backup data from Ryan regarding not only the hours, but the question regarding the nests, which Ryan did send me, and I did send to my chairman to his CEPD email that unfortunately he didn't receive.
By the way,
So,
he's our chairman too. He's not just your chair.
yes, sir.
So let me ask you, do we need to have either an understanding or a motion that whoever's making these checks out needs to at least initially get an approval from Jennifer and Dick before a check is sent?
We are, if I may, Chairman, we already have an SOP that if you recall back in, I believe, February, I rewrote requesting a two-prong approval between not only the treasurer, but the executive director as well. And that was, if you recall, rolled into the online bill pay system that we set up when I got here. So that was already in the SOP. The commissioner has asked, the chairman has asked me to include him moving forward as well. So that's what I was doing. I did not approve anything until the chairman also agreed, and I was getting information from Ryan, which I did send.
But you changed the SOP
I didn't,
without approval.
I did, but I didn't change.
Well, you made the determination not to pay the bill, which is not following. You didn't follow standard operating procedure, which was approval from two of us, not the chairman,
Understood.
not the chairman.
You're right, but I wasn't going to approve something when another commissioner who happens to be the chairman told me that he didn't agree with it, and I needed to get more documentation, which I did, and I requested it.
You didn't contact me at all after that about any of this.
Well, the point was, there should have been a discussion, and then Ryan volunteered, look, I just want to end this. Give me X and we'll call it a day. And Jennifer
Could
said,
we
do you
hear
want to
from
do it?
Ryan now?
That's the only reason there was no discussion with you, just so you know. I mean, after.
Well, so let me just say this. If you look at 2102, the resolution you passed in February, signed by the chairman, it includes the project minimum and maximum. So that is part of what is on your website, is part of the resolution that it references. The conversation that Chairman Neville is suggesting would have been appropriate to have in February, March, April, or May. Having the conversation about pricing once the project is complete is completely irregular and frankly not within the business norms that I'm accustomed to. So if the price per nest were problematic for you, it would have been appropriate to have that conversation many months ago, not when we've already completed the entire task. So I think rather than looking at this as somehow, in your estimation, we are quote, using you as an ATM, which is an incredibly offensive thing to assert. I think that you should look at this as a positive, that in fact, we are $19,730 under the maximum budget. So what SCCF has done has delivered this for you, $20,000 under what you approved.
Well, what you just said is incorrect. I approved the cost of the nest. I didn't understand this excess $60,000-$70,000, and that's when I went.
Who admits they don't understand what they vote on? I've never heard a politician admit that they misunderstood what they voted on.
Brian, thank God.
You signed it. You signed it.
I was not there when you came down.
This isn't, I mean, again, I would have had this conversation 6 ways to Sunday, every day of the week before the project were finished. But the fact that we're having this conversation now is wildly inappropriate, in my opinion.
Well, that's your opinion, but what's more inappropriate, you knew from the get-go there were issues, and your fail-safe is, well, you signed it, so tough luck. And what I'm saying.
Who does? Do you do this with other contractors? Do you all have this conversation when the work is completed? You try to renegotiate the pricing? We've never had this before since I've been at SCCF.
Do you make proposals and then bring in an MOU that doesn't even mildly reflect what you said? You did this prior to the sea level rise, Captain. You proposed.
I don't know why are we talking about that? You and I are discussing the sea turtle monitoring.
The bottom line is, the second I heard for your 120 minimum, Jennifer was immediately notified. And I said, what do you mean it's signed? Who the hell signed it? Well, you signed. I said, where does it say 120,000? I've yet to see that. So the whole.
Look on your website. It's attached to your resolution. that you have signed. It is on your website. It
Okay,
shows
so-
project
yeah.
minimum 120.
Ryan,
You
what
approved a
you're-
project
what you're
maximum of
trying to-
176.
Yeah, okay, but what I'm hearing also is that you signed it and it wasn't what was said at the meeting with me present.
It is. I have the PowerPoint to prove it. We did it. We talked about this. I gave you the project minimum and
Did
maximum.
you also say it would be $650 and that's, and there's gonna be about $80,000 in extra costs, even at the minimum? Did you say that at the meeting? No,
I
you
said there was a
didn't.
project minimum and I told you how many
No,
nests
that
were
was
included.
Ryan,
May
I was
18th, May
not there at
18th,
that
I emailed CEPD again on May 18th, providing you with the project minimums and maximums. So if
You
you
did
opt
before.
not to,
Yeah.
if you opt not to read it, I don't believe I should be held liable for that.
No, what I think is being misunderstood here, I was in Massachusetts, I had to leave the meeting before the 120 word came out. And none of the board remembered the, wait a minute, or did the math in their head, say, wait a minute, didn't he say 650 either times 100 or 200?
I have never, ever seen something passed by an elected official
Right,
who says, I signed this, it's on our website, but we don't stand by it. I've never seen that in my life.
okay, well, thank you. It's just amazing that the things we've accomplished with such nincompooperi, isn't it?
If you want to characterize it like that, that's fine, but that's not what I said.
No, that's just saying that, you know, what you're saying is that you are amazed at the lack of unprofessionalism I must have.
From you, absolutely,
Yeah, well, you should,
absolutely.
you know, you should, Ryan, just so you know, look at my history and the contributions I've made to both islands. And then add up what you've done. And this will be my list, and this will be your list.
Okay.
Okay, we're
I'm not going to have this conversation. I'm not going to have this conversation.
But you
This
wanna
is
see the
infantile and
text of it?
sophomoric. I'm telling you a simple
This is
fact.
your guy. You want to see the text that he said, like a 10-year-old?
Renee, do you really want to say publicly what people say via text? I think that would backfire.
Right, okay, Ryan. It's wonderful that you're leaving, so we can't wait.
Well, that is absolutely inappropriate.
Well, you know what's inappropriate is you work at the SCCF and you're gunning for him. You're at the CEPD now. Did you ever think of that? Take your SCC hat off, put your CEPD
I
hat
was
on.
on.
Ralph, I wish you would say something, Ralph. I've never seen anything
We're
like
getting
this.
raked over the coals on
Someone call a
this.
point of order.
Point of order, I've said what I said.
Thank you.
It's just, I don't like spin.
So let's try to get some control over the meeting and try to decide what to do here.
Well, Ralph, can we get back to my point?
Yeah, I think John had a request to speak.
Yeah, so I mean, okay, so my impression is that someone, I'll call the accountant, sent out a check. But that approval was not obtained from Jennifer first and then the treasurer. Is that correct?
No, I approved it. Jennifer did not approve it.
Yes, Mr. Kyle, I have
Jennifer approved.
I have copy of an email that I sent that Mr. Kyle sent to all of us, the CPA, myself, and our chairman, where he approved it. And then on 10/22, our chairman sent a reply all email that says, it is not approved until I receive all the backup. Which I
So-
had already sent, but he didn't receive it because it went to his CEPD email.
So again, Rafe, the approval from Jennifer never came first. And my understanding is the rules are Jennifer needs to approve it first, and then Dick, the treasurer, approves it, and then the check is sent. So basically, this check was sent without the proper rules and procedures. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
So how do we not do this again?
Well, that's a conversation that I'm gonna have with our CPA, clarifying our SOP currently. And then as our chairman has suggested to me, as I mentioned previously, he would like to also be included on the approval. So I'll have to recreate a new SOP that includes a 3-prong approval, and that will have to go to the board for the next voting meeting to be approved by them.
And I have no objections to that procedure as long as Ray feels that that's a proper procedure.
Ralph.
Calls them rape, that's what they call them.
Yes, that's that would be fine, and that will handle issues in the future. So it would be appropriate to have a standard operating procedure for approval of invoices by the staff department and then forward to the CPA and to Commissioner Pyle for signatures.
We
Thank you.
already have that. We already have an SOP in place, Ralph, that clearly states it's a two-pronged procedure between the treasurer and the executive director.
Which
I
is
thought you folks were making a
fine.
third.
Yeah, that's fine. I think what John is saying that you should follow that procedure in the future and make sure as a director that everyone knows what they're doing and they're following that. So
Yes,
But staff is.
I think
gonna
his concern is not this particular invoice. It sounds like his concern is how checks are managed and cashed for invoices.
absolutely. Thank you.
Well, we've never had this issue before. This is honestly the first time in 11 months that I've been here that the CPA has paid a check he shouldn't have without the proper approval. So I think this is a one-off. And perhaps where the confusion was is again, when Treasurer Pyle stated on 10/20 that it was approved, and then 2 days later, the chairman says it wasn't approved. I think that's where the confusion is.
Ralph, I have a question. Did you look at the contract that was signed, that apparently I DocuSigned, where it had all the listings of all the costs that would also be incorporated outside of the turtle relocation nests?
The only thing,
Because that, my conundrum again is.
the only thing I have here is Exhibit A to a resolution that was approved. Let me pull the resolution number.
Okay.
Resolution 2021-02.
Mhm.
And I have an Exhibit A, but I don't have a full contract and I don't have the PowerPoint presentations that were presented by Ryan for SCCF. It does have on the one that I have seen, training, daily monitoring, as well as nest relocation. It doesn't have a rate sheet that I see for hourly stuff. I think at some point here, we need to let Ryan address the substantive, invoice and how it was arrived at. I'm not sure which invoice we are talking about now, the first one or this revised one. So maybe we could sort that out.
And Jennifer, can you explain what took place when Ryan was texting me that Ryan asked for, can you pay X and we'll just call it finished, and then that was agreed upon? So can you just sort of tell the rest of the board what had happened? So then, because I want to understand if he agreed to give a break on the whole price, understanding that it was DocuSigned, et cetera.
I mean, as I
Can you just
shared,
tell us what happened?
I think as I shared with you and I've shared with Ryan, I think there's a level of frustration at that point, in my professional opinion, and Ryan, I'm certainly not trying to speak for you. But the level of frustration that day was pretty high. And so I think at that point, Ryan decided to remove some of the items from the invoice to have the new invoice, the invoice number 2, updated invoice, come to what would have been a total of, can't read that, what would have been a total of $135,000 for the project versus the initial $157,000 that it would have been from the first invoice. And again, Ryan, if I'm putting words in your mouth, clarify. And we had worked it out. I mean, as your administrator, executive director, it was my understanding that, I'm allowed to make business decisions and work this out with our vendor. We are his customer, he is our vendor. And I thought that was within my jurisdiction to do that. And I thought Ryan and I had worked it out.
Mhm.
And so then when Mr. Pyle contacted me and mentioned that he wanted to bring it up, that's how we're here.
But Ryan said, okay, I'll accept 135, and then
Yes.
Dick wanted to pay them more.
Well,
Pay them.
No,
the
no,
original-
that's not,
which
that's
I had
not.
a problem
okay, hold on,
with. Okay.
hold on. Let Ryan
That-
speak.
What occurred was I was under the impression that the chairman would never sign it or approve the invoice unless I did X, Y, or Z. I don't understand the internal workings of CEPD, nor should I have to as a vendor. So my understanding was if the chairman would not approve it, then therefore I would not get the payment. So in my mind, this conversation, I didn't even know was going to be a possibility. So that was the level of confusion.
Brian,
I
can
said-
you quantify that statement, well, I wouldn't pay it until I got what I wanted? I believe you were asked, according to the text on my phone, I don't have the data, can we go over the data? I don't want to, and then you said you have the data. I mean,
Yeah,
there was no conversation, you're making this up now.
Okay.
Let's try not to
I-
interrupt each other while we're speaking
Yeah,
and let
I-
whoever is speaking complete their time for everybody. And then once they're done speaking, everyone else will have time.
Well, I just wanted to explain that the statement just made by Ryan was that he said that he had to come up with a number, otherwise it wasn't.
Do you want to hold that thought, Renee, until all of his things are done? Maybe take some notes for yourself and then you can address them all. So we're not interrupting each other. We want to make sure everyone has enough time to get through their presentation.
So my point was that I didn't understand the internal workings. At that point, I had yet to receive the check for the full amount, which added a layer of confusion. As you can imagine, as a vendor, you're told no by the chairman, and then you receive a check for the full amount. That is, again, a non-standard business practice in my experience. I was under the impression, I wasn't looking to cut a deal. I was under the impression somehow that this was what the chairman said, and therefore, if it weren't less, it wasn't going to be paid. I stand by the fact that this conversation is inappropriate after the project is completed. This is a conversation to have before you start work. And you approved a project minimum and maximum. Again, we're $20,000 under the project maximum.
Right, so again, I go back with the price was a lot for what work was done. There was some key questions. That's why I volunteered the idea of a workshop so that our 40-year relationship with the SCCF, which has been an amazing relationship, and until recently.
Well, don't characterize the relationship with everyone in the room.
Pardon me? No, in other words, I think.
Chairman, I might suggest something just because we have, I guess, two people in person and one person by Zoom. Maybe there's some way you could come to agreement to pay the lower of the invoices, and if there's a disputed amount, hold that or continue that until we have everyone here for the next meeting.
That was the purpose of the workshop.
We have a bunch of things that we got to take care of today, so I don't want to get too bogged down.
No part of that. He wanted to just cut, wants to pay what he says because Ryan's right, Renee's wrong, and pay it. And we're saying, why not do a civilized workshop, which I volunteered, so that everyone could air out, go over the bills, understand profit margins.
Renee, we already have in the record what the proposal was. And as Ryan stated, they delivered what we all agreed we wanted them to do. They delivered.
No doubt, no doubt.
$20,000 less than what the maximum was. And they are just asking to be compensated for expenses that they incurred, both in the consulting side, as well as the fact that the Great Lakes delayed things for 14 days.
Okay, so there was Ryan, how many nests were there? 120 or something, give or take? Can anyone?
I couldn't hear your question. I couldn't hear you.
Yes, relocated.
125, and the original proposal was it could be up to 200 nests. So it's a few thousand less than the maximum amount, but we did have a little over half the nest. To me.
No, Renee, that's not what that's not what it said.
No, but no, when Ryan originally proposed, we talked about 650 a nest, and it could be anywhere from as little as 100 nests, could be a maximum of 200 nests. And so why is it very close to the higher amount?
We had nest relocation. It was on the proposal that's Exhibit A.
Right.
It certainly would be helpful if you had all these documents in front of you. Training, $2,000. Daily monitoring, 450. 56,700 for 18 weeks for 126 days. Nest relocation, $600 per nest during peak season. $114,000 for 190 peak nests, and then $400 per nest after peak season. $4,000 for 10 off-peak nests. Project maximum $176,700. Project minimum $120,000.
Right. So in other words, the scope of work was a little over half as much that was needed because of the amount of nests that were actually conceived and relocated. And my point was, why is the bill still on the high side of the not to exceed? And the question was, I wasn't aware, and unfortunately wasn't made aware, and I was just surprised. You know, there was a lot of questions I had. I said, wait a minute, monitoring, what monitoring is different? And I'm sure there is some, but what monitoring is different that isn't done every year where we don't get charged for it? Because they have, you know, volunteers or staff, they go up and down both beaches.
It was part of my presentation, the difference.
Explain that it was.
Yes, all peak, it required, we couldn't use volunteers to relocate peak nests. That was part of the FWC requirement in the beginning. That required us to hire trained biologists to do that. So that was
under the $650 per nest, correct?
600. You've gotten every number
600,
incorrect.
okay, thank you.
Yes.
600. So my point is, this multiple thousands and thousands of dollars for, I mean, you know, little case in point, why is it that Kelly's charges were never less than a half an hour, and there were meetings just on regular, regular CEPD meetings where maybe she would be asked a few things, or be 10, 15 minutes, but there was a 2-hour charge. I mean, you don't have to answer the question, but when I look at these things, I'm like, is no one watching the farm here? It's just like, can we ask about these things? You know, can we?
I think that's a great question to ask yourself.
Well, I mean, what is the minimum charge if Kelly is on the?
I'm actually, I just want to understand if we have to refund this money or not. I need to understand that. I need to understand if I have to send our attorney to the next meeting, because this to me is so beyond the pale of what is normal for business interactions that I am uncomfortable. So please, however you want me to deal with the money that you have already sent us, please tell me that now.
I see. So you're demanding, well, then what do you want to do? So the
It's not
big
up to
question
me,
is,
it's up to you all.
so then I would make a motion right now. Do you pay him that what your chairman is contesting the amount because there's no workshop to really go over and delineate the actual cost, because they were, in my opinion, a little extensive, little items like $50 every time they're on the beach buggy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
You
Regardless.
agreed to that price in February. I don't understand why we're having this conversation
Or-
in November.
Time out. Mr. Powell actually already made the motion to approve
Right.
payment of the original invoice of $66,000, and Mr. Sylvia seconded it. So what we would need to do now is address that motion on the floor,
Right.
see if it passes or fails, and then regarding
Oh,
that
I see.
outcome,
Okay.
then you can potentially make a second
Well,
motion.
no, I see you said. So there's no desire whatsoever on Dick's part to amend the motion to have a civilized workshop to go over the items so everyone feels it's fair and organized. And whatever the amount is, it is. There's never been,
The reason that I approved the invoice, the original invoice in the first place, is I reviewed all of the data that was presented in the invoice, the number of nests and whatever. And I was at the meeting back in February where we agreed to the scope of the project. So I was there. I remember all of the numbers, and I felt that we should pay the invoice. I believe this is the third invoice, Ryan, that you guys have submitted.
It
Is
is.
that right?
I believe it's a third.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it was a payment each time of $30,000 for 3 payments, and then the nest covered, so.
Right.
Yes.
Dick, what is the
I'm
original
very
invoice
comfortable
you're
with
talking
having
about?
approved it. I only regret that I was not informed that that the chairman had a problem, because we certainly could have we certainly could have worked it out, giving the chairman the proper information so that he understood the scope of the work and what the bid was. But that didn't happen, and I frankly hold the staff responsible for not letting the treasurer know there was a problem with this invoice.
You know, the only, there seems to be a slight misunderstanding. I have no problems with the scope of work. They did a fantastic job. They did what they were supposed to do. I have a problem with the final pricing and the hours and this and that, and I wanted a real accounting for it, and you seem to not have an issue with that. And I want to also point out that I looked into the history, and we had someone here named Evan who charged $50 an hour to come back and forth to work. And there were issues. You went ahead and proved that. That's like, are you really? I mean, the guy bought a hard drive and then charged 3 hours at $50 an hour to go buy it. And he had to rent the car because he couldn't even afford a car. I mean, when I hear these stories, I get a little nervous saying, you know, guys, are we really watching this and understanding what we're approving?
Dick, can you clarify for me? You talked about the original invoice, and we talked about some invoice where it's $20,000 underneath what the original limit was on the upside. Clarify for me what we're really talking about here.
So
Go ahead, Ryan.
it's 20,000 under the project maximum that you all approved. That's what I meant by that, Commissioner Sylvia.
So go ahead, Dick, tell me about the original proposal, or the original bid or whatever it was you talked about that we were going to pay.
Well, we had the original proposal back in February, when we signed the contract to have FCCF do this turtle monitoring and nest moving. By the way, all of this was done by the CEPD board in an effort to find the most economical time to do the project. And we started out with the idea of doing it in September, July, August, September timeframe. And that was right in the middle of turtle season. So we were able to get
Okay,
set up
so let me understand.
appropriately.
Let me understand. I think Rafe is the one outlining this. So the project maximum was 176K, and somehow the work came in 20,000 below, and that was paid, correct?
In error, yes, sir.
We
Okay,
paid-
so
the last bill was $66,000 to get to the 157,000. By paying 66, the total cost was 157,000 versus our maximum guarantee of 107. So it came in about $20,000, $15,000 less than what they said.
and that's what, and clarify for me, Dick, this is with the pricing issues that Renee is highlighting?
It's the hours. It's the hours. You know, it's like they say, well, look, this will be time plus labor. And I'm saying, where are all these hours? You know, what are we responsible for? What should we pay? There's, you know, and you know, there's like 5 weeks of 40 hours a day, just coordination. And I remember there were issues with getting the permit, and then I think Aptum had to come in and help, and Was that being charged? So I had questions. I just want to say, guys, you charged us all these hours. Can we have a just fireside chat with these things? And if that's really the hours that were physically spent, then okay, it's fair. But Commissioner Pyle, did you look at the hours and say, oh, I guess that's what it takes? Or did you even look at the hours? I mean, when you build something, don't you look at hours to see if the tile guy charged you 47 hours for something that in the means catalog takes 10? Or why is it that there's 2 hours? Kelly's never been with us for 2 hours on a CEPD Zoom meeting. It was either 2 hours or 1 hour. So in other words, without going into every little nitty gritty detail, I just said, hey, can we go over this? And Ryan was, like he said, he assumed I wasn't going to pay or whatever because, and that wasn't the case at all. I just can't we talk about this? And you're right. Jennifer should have told you right out of the gate, Renee's really not happy with this 120 minimum and 170, what happened? And I would have accepted that, but I just wanted to say all these hours, I just wanted to go over them, if it is what it is, fine, but 185 hours, that's a head scratcher, I'm sorry.
So Rafe, let me ask you, on the original agreement contract, are the number of hours listed?
I have not been provided that. What I see was just, hold on.
Sure.
Let's see. Let me see here. I think it was attached here. Let me just find it. Okay, here's the resolution. Can you see that scrolling by?
Yes.
Okay. This other part is for a research grant. That's different. And this is the attachment with the cost estimate.
Okay,
And
so within that cost estimate, Rafe, what you're telling me is that we're 20,000 under that top limit. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
yes,
So why do I give a damn about the number of hours it took to do this?
I think those were just, Ryan could speak for this, but I think those were provided so you could see that they were doing work on the project and what kind of work was involved in
And I can
coordination.
appreciate all
There was
that.
some, you'll notice there was some part here I noticed where the project moved behind 500 feet at night and that required additional work. There, things happen during a project. And so these are the hours that were incurred as part of that project.
So
Can I
we are
add
not,
that
we're not being charged for the extra hours. Is that correct? Because we just are within the budget. Is that
No,
correct?
you're within the quoted budget amount from minimum to maximum. In fact, you're 20,000 under the maximum.
So if I hire a contractor to redo my bathroom and he says $15,000 and he gets it done in $13,000, why do I give a damn about the number of hours that he's spent working on the bathroom? I don't get it. What are we arguing here?
No, Commissioner Sylvia, the biggest consternation that should have been told to the rest of the board, as soon as I heard even 120 minimum, I wanted explanation. Why is it 120? Because when I was at the meeting, we talked about if there's 100 nests, that would be about 70 or 80,000. I wanted to understand this extra 40,000. Yes, if they tell you, and so apparently through DocuSign or something, I went ahead and hit the, that particular, I just, as I said before, right from the very beginning, I had a problem with the project minimum or maximum because it was not made to my attention that there was all of these other things that had to be paid. I thought it was the straight 600 per nest. I wasn't aware of these other charges, which are now an extra, which is more than the next relocation because of all the time that had to be spent. And it just would have been nice to say, wait a second, okay, you want 120 minimum, 177 maximum. Let's explain the time that's going to be necessary for that. And then they would have said, well, we need time for this, we need time for that. I said, well, 60,000 seems like a lot. I'm looking up some facts here and how about we didn't have the time to negotiate, and that's fine because it was agreed upon with the board. Unfortunately, I wasn't part of the physical, aspect there, but my complaint is regardless of what is under or over the budget, all I asked for was a transparent explanation as to the hours generated.
And my impression, Renee, is you never got that response.
At the very end, Jennifer, 2 weeks ago, got the information. And when I was looking at it, Ryan said, I'll take 135 just to move this thing on. And I said, accept it, and let's all move on, and I won't have to look. In other words, none of this would have happened if there wasn't that communication that I had to leave the meeting, because there was no way I would have immediately said, wait a minute, guys, hold the presses here. If we do 120 nests or 100 nests, it should be X. Ryan, how much more is it going to cost for supervision of that? And if he said, oh, it's going to be about $80,000 more, and I said, well, can we have a little details on the scope of work on that? And he would say, oh, well, we have to attend meetings. I said, well, you have to do this. And we would have made a fair negotiation because I just feel we're paying, it's not what I feel, it's irrelevant. I just wanted some more understanding and treating it like a regular business project. And apparently there was some, and again, mine is not complaining. I've always been asking, can we go over details? But I know what you're saying, Harry. You're just saying, let's move on, who cares? It's under the minute, but it's like, you agreed to pay a minimum and a maximum. You're absolutely correct.
I provided everything that was asked for me except for timesheets for salaried employees. That is the only thing we do not have. And I will not disclose my employees' salaries. I think that's asking too much.
Yeah.
So everything that was asked of me, I have provided. I have given explanation. I don't understand why we have to continue this.
Ryan, I get the sense that Renee's questions were not responded to.
That's right.
That's inaccurate. We were asked for what you see. The only thing I have not provided him, he asked for timesheets for salaried employees. That's not something that we keep, and that is not something I've ever been asked for before.
We've asked for profit factors, like if we're being charged $62.50 for Kelly, since you're asking us for, donations for grants and all that, usually, I don't know what the past history is, but before that, we used to pay a certain markup ratio that, we had a limit on. Do you mind telling us what your markup ratio is?
We agreed to a price. I can't give that to you right now. I don't have that right now. That is not something that any other government agency has ever asked us for, period. We have contracts with Lee County, the state of Florida, the city of Sanibel, and a variety of other entities. I've never been asked that before in a government meeting.
You've never been, it's very common practice to ask what the profit.
It may be, but not in this sector.
Government.
I'm sure it's very common in fashion, but it's not common in this sector.
Well,
Right.
in retrospect, in all fairness, if we said, listen, if you're going to charge us, let's, in other words, all we're trying to do is make it fair because, there's two sides to the knife here. Number one, you're looking for grants, but number two, we feel you're going to try to make as much money as possible on this. And I admire you for that because your number one job is to raise money.
This is not, how you're characterizing this could not be more offensive to SCCI. Stop. That is not what we're doing. I really take offense to what you're saying. And I think our 13,000 members would also find this offensive, that somehow we are looking out for money and not for sea turtles. please, I think what you're saying is absolutely beyond the pale of what should be acceptable in public discourse.
Thank you for letting me know how to do my job. I really appreciate that.
Well, I wish somebody would.
No.
Rafe, let
Rachel,
me,
you don't like to be challenged, Ryan. That's the bottom line.
Renee.
Rafe, can I ask a couple of questions from you? In terms of these kind of contracts, is it the standard procedure that one does not reveal the salaries of the workers involved?
Yeah, I haven't seen it on this particular project. Sometimes in engineering, you'll get a rate sheet, which means what they're going to charge for each engineer, but they don't typically say they pay the engineer $350,000 a year. They just say what their hourly rate is for you to hire them. The other is considered internal business.
And the second question is, and I'll phrase it in my kind of economics. Is there any question with respect to someone asking the contractor what their profit margin is? What their
Yeah,
markup is or something?
That's not typical unless it's what they call like a cost plus contract. Sometimes like the Department of Defense will do a cost plus contract. You know, you've heard about them in the Middle East where they use private defense contractors where they say, well, we'll hire Black Hawk and we'll pay Black Hawk their costs plus 10%, something like that. But that's not this kind of contract. This wasn't a cost plus contract.
Thank you.
This will be the final thing I say. I'm just, saying that when you work with an organization and there's two sides to a relationship, one is a grant base and the other is a vendor base. There should be there should be the ease of ability that if there's any bumps that hit the road, they don't say, well, you signed this or you did that or blah, blah, blah. So, let's just call the vote and move on because we have bigger fish to fry.
You can call the vote.
I'm calling the vote. So,
Go ahead and call the vote.
All right, Chairman Bill,
no.
Vice Chairman Sylvia,
Could you clarify what we're voting on, please?
The motion.
we're voting on the motion to pay the original invoice of $66,970 that was due.
Versus the 135 that you agreed on. That's fine.
Yay.
What was this vote?
How you got it?
Yes. To vote.
Aye.
And Treasurer Pyle,
Yes.
all right,
Motion passes.
2-1.
2-1. There we go. The end. Very nice.
Thanks.
We'll have to do this. Next item. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, is
Right.
Ryan going to tell us why he didn't want to be in the video?
No, Renee, that was not an appropriate topic.
No, but you said that they did.
No, not
Okay.
today.
All right. Okay.
So Rafe, please clarify for me this, we have to vote on this again?
Yeah,
When
you're
did-
paying him the full amount.
No, we're
No,
done.
you should
Done.
be okay now. We can move on to the next item.
Did he
Thank
keep the
you.
money you sent him already? All right, now, financial comments, Mr. Pyle.
Jennifer included in your packet the October financials, which, as you know, is the first month of the fiscal year. And when you review, there's nothing surprising in the numbers. It may look a little daunting to see that the actual year-to-date loss is $30,000. But because these books are done on a cash basis, cash comes in, cash goes out. They don't adjust for payables or receivables. It looks like a large loss, but it's only 1 month, and I'm comfortable with how the finances are going. Does the executive director have any comment on the finances that I need to know about?
Just keep in mind that our parking lot will be closed probably another week,
So about the third week.
Yeah.
third week of November, so
It-
that will
it
affect
does.
general fund.
Yeah, it does impact the parking lot. I think you only took in, was it $10,000 or $1,000 last month.
Yes, we had shut it down shortly
Yeah.
after the first.
So anyway, but that's, we're getting a deep cleaneration, which is more important than the parking lot.
Okay,
So any questions?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the treasurer, are you asking about, we have workers there. And the place has been closed for 2 months. Are you curious if they've been paid or not paid or what they're doing? Have you looked into that?
well, I was gonna have you discuss, there are seven people now on the payroll versus 2 contract employees 2 years ago. So we've made a big shift in our staff. But do you want to talk about the parking lot
sure.
and
So,
how you're handling the part-time workers?
yes, so we actually have one full-time individual. I went through this in the last meeting last month in detail, like the whole staffing plan. If you
I
recall, okay, all right. So we have a full-time staff member in our parking lot as well as a part-time. And as I mentioned last month during our meeting, our objective was to be able to use this downtime in the parking lot to be able to clean out our storage unit. I'm not sure if you're aware that we had a storage unit prior to me. And it's been open for 3 years and we've spent $11,500 on it. And because of their efforts, this is the last that we have left. We went through the record sheet and we were able to close the storage unit. So I've been utilizing the employees in the parking lot as well as mainly Lindsay here, our legislative aide, to assist in that project, clearing things out and getting things scanned so that we actually have some electronic records. And this was all done by our records law within the state in terms of how long we have to keep certain records. And Lindsay was able to supervise that project.
Question, and good for you putting to do other things. Don't get me wrong. I just want to see who was aware of what was going on. How big was the place? The storage area? Approximately
10 by 10.
10 foot by 10 foot. Okay, so the guys came, they got the stuff.
They put it here for a little while.
Some of it,
And what did
The
they do
important
for the
things.
next month and a half?
they shredded everything, broke down all the cardboard, cleaned out the storage unit.
Yeah, what did they do for the rest of the month and a half?
Right now, they don't, there's no task for them to do.
Okay, so why, if they're just paid hourly, why are they being used? Because I guess what I'm saying is if we have, okay, so a month and a half to bring up a 10 foot by 10 foot boxes, that's like 2 guys a day tops. And then you bring them here and they were scanned, but Lindsay, you scanned, right, Lindsay? You compartmentalized them?
I helped a little bit with that, like the boxes that they went through, there was back to like the 60s worth of paperwork, so we had
That's
to go
important
through.
stuff, but were they in charge of scanning and documenting yet? Or did you do that?
It was a mixture of both, since I'm only part-time, they would come in on like what they were supposed to work in the parking lot, they would come in and do it on their days. So it was a group effort.
If you
But no,
would-
what I'm trying to understand, I'm thinking a 10 foot by 10 foot area. You can put so many boxes in there, and whether they're record albums or they're documents, and they had files to them, and they had names on the files. That you're right, they do get scanned. A lot of them were already scanned. So I guess my question is when it can't, but that's like a few days. What else are they gonna do? They get paid because if they're hourly, they don't have to be scheduled. I'm not saying don't put them to work. I'm saying you want to keep them paid, then they gotta do something. And what are they doing?
I'd like to clarify the storage. That storage unit was probably the worst filing system I've ever seen in my entire life. The boxes that were put in there had no rhyme or reason to it, so it wasn't like looking at a folder, this is the financials from this month. I was looking at each individual paper and then quantifying, classifying that and scanning it out. So it was a very.
Oh, no, that can
process.
take forever. I do understand.
Yes, and that's, they were doing that.
But they were tasked with compartmentalizing and documenting
Correct.
through, with a computer, one guy scanned the other guy. So that
Correct.
took them a month.
That, just about, yes,
Yes.
and, Lindsay
I'm not
provided-
questioning
right,
it. And
I
just for the record, there are 2 major libraries on American political extremist groups, which was my stepfather's records, one in Brown
Mhm.
and one at University of Akron. I know exactly what it takes, so I am not giving a hard time.
No, I understand. I was just
Yeah, I just wanna
clarifying, and Lindsay was
understand.
providing the oversight, if they had questions, if a certain document met
Right.
certain requirements, they would come to Lindsay and she
So-
would direct them.
If they're being paid now, what are they doing? Because there's nothing to do.
Who said they were being paid at this moment?
So they're not being paid.
I-
so there's
would you
nothing
like-
for
For
how
the
about-
hours they work.
How about, yeah, why don't I just prepare a payroll report?
No,
for you?
Jennifer, you're getting the wrong question.
No, I'm really not.
No, I'm saying that if you have this help,
Yes,
then what are you doing? If you want to pay them, what can they do? This is I mean, want to keep people employed, right? That's a good thing.
Mhm. We have files
And so-
in this office too that need to be gone through. With lots of files, lots, in file drawers.
But you're a year older than I am, as far as being on this board. I remember when I left this board in 2005, that they had a scanning system, that everything got scanned. What happened to all the scans?
I think you lost a lot of continuity when you lost a lot of staff, particularly your administrator.
You mean
So-
Joe Agenti?
I don't know.
So all that
All
stuff
the
went?
people prior to me, I don't know, Renee. I only
Yeah.
started in January.
No, it's not your fault.
I
It's a
understand that, but I
question.
prefer we move forward. If you would
Yeah.
like me to present a payroll report for the December meeting, I'm happy to do that. Compare it to budget and give you all the duties of each individual part-time employee. I'm happy to do that.
Right.
But right now, we have to really get to the biggest agenda item,
Go ahead.
which is discussing the appointment of the individual that passed away.
Right.
So
Right,
if
let's
you'll,
do it.
if
Yeah.
you'll
Oh, no,
continue.
let's do it. Go ahead. Let's do it.
No, it's your meeting.
Yeah, okay, so.
Actually, Dan, I think Dan's up.
Well, we have we have old business. We told
Correct.
Beach Nourishment update.
Okay, do you want to go ahead and give that update?
Okay, so the beach nourishment is winding down this project. They are anticipating the final beach fill to be done on Thursday, November 11th, on Veterans Day. And they're going to be continuing the planting process. That's probably got a little over about 2 weeks left or so. As we alluded in the previous section of the meeting, we're anticipating reopening the parking lot for Allison Hagra in the third week of November prior to the Thanksgiving holiday. And that'll give the contractor a little bit of time to demobilize and get all their equipment out through that beach access.
Okay. Question, I received email and they were saying that, why do we plant the sea oats, should we plant them in the wet season? This person wasn't aware that they were already planted. But the concern was, which was a good concern, this person took the time to actually look at the contract, which is public record, and notice that there's, they'll guarantee like 50% of the plants or something like that. So I'm thinking, wait a second, the old days, and Dick, you would remember, where they would have a little Jeep and a big water tank in the back, and they would just spray it if it was periods of drought. So immediately I volunteered. I said, look, as chairman, that can always be utilized. And by the way, there was a big drench. But my question to you is, to your knowledge, are those pods, do they have that glycerin in them? They do, the new ones? Yeah. That's a good thing. That's good. That was my question. And in addition,
Drop them in, the guy walks along, makes the hole, and you drop it in, there's a little pot there, so there's.
oh, that's great. That's great. Okay, because I'm being brought up to speed. The other thing is, have you noticed, I've noticed at the south side of the island, there are footprints everywhere. And I'm not talking about the public beach. I'm talking about just people don't, and then people are laying down. So Nicole is finding out about, you said it shouldn't be too much money. Nicole will go on in a second, but I did ask Nicole to look into, not the big poles, but just something that make it obvious for people not to walk on that stuff at ASAP. People are paying a lot of money. I don't think they want to step over dollars to pick up pennies. So I don't think it's going to be an issue, but she, with board blessing, of course.
Yes, there
That is in play, and I'm sure Nicole might have some answers for us. But is that it? So
There's, as you said, there's been a lot of people walking through the dunes, and I've seen beach chairs placed in the dunes, and I've actually stopped the beach buggy and moved them out of the dunes.
good.
for
We gotta
that,
get
but
those
we
fixed
do,
as soon as possible.
and we are anticipating the receipt of signs informing people to stay out of the
Good,
pressure
good.
planted dunes, probably by towards the end of the week, we should get those.
Yeah, thanks. Just so you know, I went ahead and okayed, it was $1,100 for 200 signs. Please keep off the, was it,
So it's 850 for the 100 signs.
and then South
Where it
Seas,
is- South Seas,
they said
it's
that
not-
we always include them, so we gotta, they want us to, it's
yes.
the, okay.
And you're gonna be doing, at each entrance, each access, you're gonna be putting some poles and ropes in.
We don't have the poles and ropes yet. We have the signs. There's 96 beach accesses, so we have 100 signs.
96, be sure to tell the Corps of Engineers
Hmm.
that we've got 96 access points.
Yeah,
They
but
said
that's
one of
private,
them are
private.
private.
They said we had with 5.
Those aren't public.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right, well, the Coast Guard's gonna talk about, because I called her over the weekend, and she said she might have something for us. Okay, thanks. Tim. So Jennifer, can we talk now about putting together a call for a new commissioner to?
Yep, I'm gonna have our
Why don't
new
you,
Director of Administration, James Elston, go ahead and review and present to you everything that needs to be done. Thank you, James.
Thank you. According to the enabling legislation that I pulled up, it states that if a vacancy occurs on the board due to the resignation, death, or removal of a board member, the remaining members may appoint a qualified person to fill out the remainder of the unexpired term. Notification of all resignations, vacancies, or appointments shall be filed with the Lee County Supervisor of Elections. The Lee County Supervisor of Elections may conduct any referendum or election if authorized by resolution of the board. I've already sent notice to the Lee County Supervisor of Elections, as well as the Florida Division of Elections as well. I did that on October 25th of this year. The SOP for such situation, which is in the packet.
We're off the screen sharing already.
Okay, cool. Or include the SOP for states that the Lee County Supervisor of Elections, like I said, needs to have a signed and dated letter sent by the administrator. Once that's all done, the process for appointing the administrator, which is in the SOP, I also included in the packet. The CPD shall solicit applications to fill a commissioner's position. Solicitation shall be made as follows: announce vacancy at the next board meeting. Obviously, that's what we're doing currently. Send a beach brief announcing vacancy. Announce vacancy at the next Captiva community panel meeting, which we plan on doing tomorrow. And place an advertisement in the local paper. I've already started looking into what's needed to get an ad running in the news press. I'll get that in a minute. Applicants then will be requested to submit a letter of interest, as well as a resume or other background information. As a staff, we've created an application for individuals as an additional screening measure to help the board when reviewing the candidates. Once we receive all the applications, submitted information will be distributed to current commissioners. And then we'll need to place it on the agenda as soon as possible.
all right, so some questions.
Yeah.
It's a Captiva thing. Why go to the news press unless they can do a nice article about the greatness of being a CEPD commissioner? I mean, people live in Captiva. I mean, the people that read the news press on Captiva read it from the editorials.
It's not just,
What's going, or,
it's not just the news press.
is it necessary? I'm sorry.
Well, that, and that's the thing, I'm looking to you guys for direction on that.
Is that the newspaper record? Is that maybe why we have to do the news press?
It doesn't have to be the news press. That's just one I reached out for, because I know we've worked with them in the past. So that's one of the first ones I reached out to, and then I'm gonna continue to like the local papers as
I
well.
see no downside. I just wanted to point that
Yeah,
out there.
yeah.
Someone said, no, it's a good idea because, or no, it's bad.
Makes sense.
So this is John, can I ask a question here?
Yes, John.
When we get
Ask away.
these applications in and et cetera, when you say appoint, do we effectively need a majority vote of our quorum to vote among the commissioners for a particular candidate?
Yes, you would need that vote. Ralph, do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, so we'd be best to have a physical quorum for that meeting and to have a majority of those present vote in
Okay.
favor of one candidate. You could do a motion to appoint a candidate with a second, or you can list the candidates and then you can take votes, but the votes cannot be secret. So you could do a ranking, but the rankings have to be done in public.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
All right, so anyways, once, like, then we need to put on the agenda as soon as practical for the appointment. Each applicant will be requested to attend a scheduled board meeting to present their qualifications. Each commissioner will have time to ask the individual any questions. Each applicant will also be provided an equal amount of time at the discretion of the chairman. Upon completion of the interviews, and I think we pretty much went over this a little bit, but I'll just follow up. Each commissioner shall rank the applicants in order of preference, with the top applicant receiving the numerical value of 1, and the next highest applicant receiving the numerical value of 2, and the ranking process continuing through the remaining number of applicants. These rankings shall be provided to the appointee, who will tally each ranking as follows. The person with the most number 1 votes is announced, and the call for motion, a second, and vote will be taken. In the case of a tie, you remove all the candidates that are not included in the tie. You then retally the total numbers for the 2 candidates that tie. The candidate with the lowest total is announced, and the call for motion, a second, and then vote is taken. If there is still a tie, discussion should ensue and a vote taken again. And then you retally again with the most number 1 votes. Should the motion fail, subsequent motions shall be considered until the board fills the vacancy. Once the board has voted on a commissioner, the board minutes will need to be sent along with a copy of the oath and 2019 Form 1 Statement of Financial Interest to the Supervisor of Elections Office and request receipt. Another thing I pulled up for the rules of procedures is the boards of commissioners of the Captiva Erosion Prevention District shall, at the first regular meeting in December of each year or thereafter, organize or reorganize officers of the district board as to designating or redesignating a chairman, vice chairman, secretary, and treasurer. The chairman, vice chairman, secretary, and treasurer shall serve for a 1-year term unless the district board shall reorganize as set forth in the procedures below. An individual commissioner may hold office of secretary and treasurer concurrently. That being said, pretty much looking for direction on when you would like us to start placing ads, how long you'd like them to run for.
Basically, we need to know your time frame on how
Yeah.
long you want to select your new commissioner. So, for example,
What's the minimum amount of time as far as
That's-
notice?
there's
That's
no
the thing,
minimum.
there's nothing, anything saying a time limit or anything.
So we could set a time limit of like 2 weeks
Yes,
Yep.
and then vote on that afterwards.
yes. So the way that, if you did do that, for example, then what you would do is have the ad or the ad requesting appointments, like,
Yeah.
who wants to be an appointee. You keep that open for 2 weeks, it would close. And then after that, you could decide, say, a week, you want to do one-on-one interviews with the candidates. You can certainly do that. You don't have to do that. You can bring them in the day you want to hold your either special meeting or appoint somebody at the December meeting. We just need to know how quickly you all are looking to do the appointment so we can get the ad in, put it on our social media, announce it at the community panel meeting tomorrow, and then leave that application timeframe open for however long you want to take applications.
Yeah, it sounds like we also have to do something in the December meeting to reorganize.
You can, yes, for sure, the reorganization of your executive committee, yes.
And there had been some discussion about the board being able to appoint someone and not go through this whole procedure of announcement of filing, whatever. Is that-
You have to go through the procedure in terms of an appointment. Everything that James read, he pulled from our legislation
Yeah.
as well as our standard
So the
operating.
board can't appoint somebody without advertising for.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
We also have to go full on this because there's 4 people that are very interested already, just for the immediate community. So
Yeah.
I think we should let everyone know and do the interviews, discuss as a board as we are now, what we're looking for, what adds value, what doesn't add value, you know.
What's the total, how many commissioners can we have?
5.
5 is the max.
Is that, you can't have more? You sure?
It's in your legislation.
So can we change the legislation?
I think the legislation says you have 5 only, but I'll go and check.
It does.
Find out if we want to add more, just like, we did this years ago, there were
Oh, court pack.
court, no, Dick, this was your way.
It says 5, I'll share my screen.
Is that right?
No, 20 years ago.
Oh, sorry.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
It was
So what we're looking for is direction from each of the commissioners that are present to tell us how long you want to advertise this for, when you want to close it and start interviewing people, and then when you want to vote on it at a meeting. So I would recommend that we just kind of go down the line and figure out what your thoughts are initially. So if you want to start.
I will start, thank you, sir. I think we start the ads. Do we have to put it, I would like, there's been cases where in the past that people said they put in they called up and they were told, you know, oh, it's too late or this or that. I would like to see a minimum of 30 days from our next meeting to, because if we give them right now to, let's say, December 30th, bear with me now, it's just an idea. Like we say, the end of the year, you have to have your thing in. That doesn't mean if someone puts it in tomorrow, that we can interview them, talk to them and say, well, we'll let you know. Because right now, there's, you know, we don't have a beach renourishment going on that we have, or the ad valorem. I mean, it's not like there's some major vote that we could really hurt ourselves. Would you be in agreement?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then everyone knows that everyone got an opportunity to really think about it or not think about it. So I would like to see that we do a end of year. That
So
would be
maybe
my.
have it ready for the first meeting in January then?
Our meeting.
Well, no, we decide January, the first meeting in January is when the decision.
Yes,
is made.
yeah.
Yeah, and then from this moment forward, people can start their audition process and we let the world know. Take what you think.
And when do you want to close that?
Oh,
Close
no, the end of the
close it
year.
on the 31st of December, is what you're saying.
Yeah, end of year,
And-
keep it
and
fair.
from
keep
now
it
until then.
Yeah.
We can interview people.
Exactly.
and
As they
whatever.
put it out.
Exactly.
Once you close it off, then you should be able to vote probably at
Right.
that January meeting.
Right, exactly, because let's say there's someone that comes in and you really like them, then you go to the restaurant a week later and they're spitting at the waitress or something, you realize the person's a nut job. So I'm like, oh my God, thank God we didn't vote for that person yet. I mean,
Run,
I
we
know,
don't
that's,
have any
that's an
nut jobs.
extreme example. But, I know, that's true, we don't have people like that. But my point is, this way we reserve judgment, it's
What is the
time.
date?
January 10th. is
January
first-
10th.
That's the first board meeting.
And
That's the
there-
next part, but
Yeah.
assuming the board approves the proposed.
Okay. So, Mr. Sylvia, do you agree with that?
So let me bring up an issue that has been brought up before, and that is with respect to attendance. Do we try to make clear to people that they have to attend X number of meetings of the board per year to ensure that we in fact have quorums at a regular interval? Is that beyond our purview, Rafe, to be able to require that?
Actually, I can answer that very quickly, Commissioner Sylvia. The reason that the staff and I put together an application is because we wanted to be very clear on what the expectations were. If you were appointed or elected to this board, which includes 12 meetings of our regular meetings a year, plus 1 workshop meeting a month, in addition to 10+ hours communicating via phone and email to staff. So we're pretty clear on the application.
But what is the minimum number of meetings they have to?
Now, my understanding, Jennifer, though, is that someone can consistently, quote, attend the meeting without physically attending the meeting, in which case we don't have the quorum to vote. Is that correct?
Correct, correct. And that is a huge challenge.
And that's something
Yeah.
we can talk about the next 50 days, because at the end of the day, do you want a person that adds more value that has to do a lot of Zoom meetings versus a person that's gonna add less value but can be there all the time? Present company excluded, of course.
So the line that we have put in the application states, board members are expected to attend each of the monthly board meetings physically and at least 1 briefing meeting virtually or physically per month. Board members are also expected to participate in correspondence via email and phone with CEPD staff as necessary.
So they're expected for all 12 meetings.
That should be the standard and then not be harassed.
Well, Zoom has changed the world.
Right, but you
There's a
don't
lot
have
of
a
those
physical forum a lot
Yeah,
of times.
and that's, so, we live in different times. The idea is at the end of the day is to be as productive and useful as possible.
But Renee,
Yeah.
you know, talking about the Zoom meeting and everything, but has our, I guess Rafe can answer this, has our legislation allowed us to do that? I mean, if, again,
Right now, you're allowed to have people by Zoom. Even the Attorney General says you're allowed to have them by Zoom. The Attorney General is recommending that you have a physical quorum so that 3 of you be there and 2 could be by Zoom or telephone in case of emergencies.
and does it require 3 physically there to have these, I'll call them significant votes?
Yes.
Okay, so we're still stuck with that. Okay.
And the only
But
thing,
But at the same time, you could have 2, I'm being the devil's advocate here, you can have 2, and then it gets ratified at the next meeting. So for example, let's say it's just Dick and I, and there was some,
well, we're doing that for the pandemic now, but once, hopefully the pandemic one day will be over. And once it's over, then we probably need to have physical quorums of at least 3 in the room.
all right, well, we'll deal with it as it comes.
Okay.
So you're gonna put out an ad right away to agree to January 1st, right there? Yeah, at our next
December
January
31st.
meeting, the
December 1st.
decision,
January
31st
10th.
is the deadline.
And in between that time, you want us to schedule appointments after the 31st of December
No,
up to, or as
no.
they come in?
No, it's as they come in, are you kidding? Absolutely. No, they come in, they're interested, yeah, well, when would you like to have an interview? It's just like when you hire people, you don't say we do our interview, you're kidding, especially now.
Okay,
All right, so let's go right to the do you want to do the, oh yeah, the Lee County interlocal agreement? Before we start on that, wait, do we miss something?
no,
Sorry.
wait, the board meetings and workshop dates.
Well, what do we have for the next workshop?
You need to approve the meetings for 2022.
Which is the same as now, they're every second Monday of the month,
It's
correct?
It's the
First-
Monday before the second Tuesday of every month.
Okay,
And then they go for the
yeah,
second
okay.
Tuesday.
All right, so approved as seen. Do we need to call a vote? No?
Yes.
I guess
we
we
need
have
to
vote
vote.
on it.
All right,
The motion is. second.
yeah, we need to, you want to make a motion?
Yes, I make a motion.
I'll
that
second.
we accept the
No, go ahead, sorry. To accept the written proposed dates, which are
dates
identical.
for fiscal 2022.
Right, Harry, excuse me, John,
Sure, I'll second it.
all right, thank you, okay. Calling the vote, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, aye, it's unanimous, moving forward. The Lee County interlocal agreement, I just want to point out something before there's any kind of vote on this. Because obviously we have to approve it but I want to put this out there, that we need to be aware of that. Okay, so as I see it, the factor of the benefits model, the recreational benefits, it still stands with the factor of the survey that was done when there was more dead fish on the beach than there were people. And so Dan has been nice enough, not nice, excuse me, Dan has been fortuitous, and Jennifer, to get a lot of information on the similar times in 19, 20, and even 21. And there was a remarkable difference in the attendance, which would increase our recreational benefits to the tune of a potential extra $1 million for the taxpayers. So I'm throwing it out there so everyone puts on their tactical hats, that if we obviously we accept at this point, but because the numbers at the outset by the economist, and to his credit, he is more than willing with this data to adjust the numbers. How do we proceed? And I'll ask the John, who is you're an economist too. So anyway, so what do we do? Do we, because, we could put ourselves, I mean, in a way.
Renee, I will say this, when you do a lot of empirical research, you try to get periods that are consistent with similar periods in the past.
Right.
And I think I agree with, I agree what I think is your sentiment, is that the sample taken was taken at a very odd time, i.e. for an economist, it's taken out of recession, and you're trying to judge the normal economy. So for me, I would support, I believe, Dan's approach in terms of let's take a new look at the redo of the economist survey with the understanding that the sample was in fact biased because of the sample period.
Well, no, that's already in play. The question is, we signed an interlocal agreement, then we go back and say, hey, the numbers were wrong. You have to give us $1 million more. They're going to tell us to pound sand. So how do we prepare them? I'm not saying they'll say pound sand. What I'm saying is they don't like changes, as we just witnessed with the SCCF. So the question is, how do we prevent?
Secret tell and Mike Campbell.
Yeah, but the county's on the phone, we could ask them if we find another finding, are we able to go back and change the
They are.
the
Well, how
interlocal
wonderful.
agreement?
How wonderful.
So if you want to ask Steve.
I would love to.
It's very
Steve and
helpful.
Mike, Steve's the best. Is Steve gonna get on the phone?
I've allowed them both to talk, they just have to unmute to.
Right,
So-
great, that's a great.
Can you hear me?
Hey,
Yeah,
Steve.
I see.
Not much of an answer, but that's a policy decision, and I don't set policy.
Okay, so if we could, and I totally understand, but if the policy is based on numbers, right, Steve? If, in other words, the
No,
policy is-
I'm answering the question, what if you want to make a change to the agreement as presented to you? That's a policy decision that would be subject to a majority vote of the county commission.
Okay, so may I answer the question in a different way? If we have no problem with the policy, but it turns out we gave you the wrong numbers, we still, would you have any objection to saying, oh, well, their numbers are a little bit different and it does make sense? So we would have to get it's not a policy change, is more as a incorrect number correction. So for example, if we're being taxed $2 million and it turned out we owed you 2.5, but we signed an interlocal agreement that says we're only giving you 2 based on the policy hasn't changed, but there was a mix up on the numbers, so we owe you another half. So we just don't want to be in a situation we sign off on a number. We're kind of pre-warning to say, what is the best, I'm actually asking for your mentoring, Steve. How can we guide this? Because we're saying that Bill Strong really took those numbers at the worst of times, and he's willing to agree to look at the hard data of the following years. So, would we have your blessing on that, that as long as we follow the protocols, we're trying to do this hand in hand, Steve, so there's no surprises.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get a vote. You can ask for anything you want, but
Yeah, I know.
anything different that's an amendment to that agreement, there, I believe, is a clause in there that speaks to amendments, and you'd have to follow that procedure.
Okay, so we'll have to look at that. Okay, so this is just a warning that we got bad numbers, didn't get caught. Forgive me for the terminology, bad numbers, but they're bad numbers. So the numbers will increase. And is there a timeline on this that we have to sign this straight away? Okay, Jennifer, yes, and of course, all right. So I'm just trying to get guidance, Steve, based on our 25-year relationship. We have not a conundrum, but we think we really have a good point to increase the recreational benefits that, we don't have the hard data yet and the sign off from the economists, but we want to do this in a way where it won't be you objecting to it. So how about this question? Would you object if we prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the numbers should be more and you feel that they are more? Would you have a problem with that? Because there would have to be changes, and that's our responsibility politically to get your commissioners to sign off. But would you have any problem if the metrics were slightly different?
Well,
You know,
Steve, I can
I don't
probably answer that. I can probably answer that. So in section 9, amendment to the agreement, this interlocal agreement may only be amended as provided for herein with the express written consent of both parties and executed with the same formality and dignities as this original agreement. So I think what Steve was saying earlier, Chairman Maville, is that yes, we can write an addendum, we can sign this and write an addendum saying, we're gonna look for an additional cost share, but then the county would have to approve that addendum, which means they would have to go back to vote to the Board of County Commissions. Does that sound right, Steve?
correct.
All right. And Steve, I'm prompting you for a question. You got a problem with that? Because we think we've got better numbers, or you can't. It's common. Let's just leave it at that.
So then what we're gonna need then is a motion and a second to approve this. And then if you want staff to write an addendum, knowing that this will have to go back to the Board of County Commissioners for them to re-vote on
Can we
it.
bring it simultaneously to let them give them the heads up? Explain the circumstance, to be prepared, to be knowledgeable is to be prepared. If they know that this is afoot, it's just, no one likes surprises. So why, is there a way, you would know, or maybe Ralph knows, or maybe Dick knows, is there a way we could hit the guy and say, we accept this? And also we want you to know that because of, amendment is most probably coming your way. Dick, what do you think?
I think that's
It's $1 million. We're not talking about.
Yeah,
20 grand.
I think the chairman of the Lake County Commission should be cornered at a cocktail party. Somebody kind of mentioned it. That we're doing this.
So just do it. Yeah, so I know, but yeah.
I think what you want to do is make Kevin aware that it's out there
Right.
without, being unethical about it.
Yeah, but yeah. No, we're not trying to be unethical, but I think if people know what's coming,
Yeah.
they appreciate it. So it doesn't get spun. All right,
Or
so
you could approve this as is, and then moving forward, as I've mentioned several meetings ago, we do these economic studies more frequently than once every 8 years.
yeah, oh no, but that's done. That's done.
So,
And we're gonna change that.
My only fear is that, we should get this signed.
We
And
will get this signed. I want this signed. Everyone wants this signed. So, Steve, you've been sort of explained, I don't know if you knew about this before. And we will let the commissioners know officially from the CBD that we are working on this. and that they should expect in the not too distant future, an amendment should our data come in as we think it will. So that everything is in the public and understood, no surprises. I guess we'll proceed that way. All right.
Sure.
All right, and Steve, real fast, blind pass is getting pretty thin, FYI.
Yeah, I'm not going to do anything about that with my neighbors just putting close to 1 million yards of sand up drift for a while.
That's a very
So-
good idea.
We'll talk to you in a year.
Thank you, Stephen, thank you very much. All right, there you have it. So the
Okay,
bottom
so-
line is, at least they know, not just us at this table. And Dick, I don't know if you knew this or not. but this was before.
Yeah, no, I
Bad
have
math.
a discussion.
We're gonna need a motion and a second and a vote to approve, for approval.
All right, let's get a motion to approve. Well, go ahead. I can make the motion. I make the motion that we approve the Lee County interlocal agreement, provided also as that we add that in an introductory letter that there will be also very good chance of amendment might be coming, but to and we'll figure a way to finesse that, but just get it to the right people that know it's yeah. But that's not the amendment, excuse me, your motion is to approve it and a letter of concern that we will be, no, what is the appropriate word I'm looking for? What would be, we're gonna approve it, but we're also sending, to also craft a letter that we're getting the data because we think that the participation might be higher.
Subject to minor changes.
Say that, or it's major changes.
Okay,
Or you'll create a letter that you will, that you and I will agree upon that should be sent. We're gonna approve it. Do we need a motion to send that letter? No, we don't need a motion to send it.
we just
Not
need,
just in the letter, we need a motion to approve the
Yeah, let's,
agreement.
okay, I make the motion to approve the agreement, the interlocal agreement with Lee County as it pertains to this beach reversion.
okay, we need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. John, do you have anything to say?
I'll support it, yay.
All right, okay, we're calling the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you. All right, and then let's just get a letter together, and Dick's right, someone can, speak to the people there when we bump into them, let them know that it's important. And I think the presentation is,
Okay,
that we're not, because I don't think you say, oh, we want more money. I think I'd say, this is the reason, this is your procedure, this is your policy, and then you use the caveat, if you only paid your taxes, and it was approved, you should expect a fair amount of money. Okay, good. Board meetings are done. We come in the local agreement. is
coastal
done.
resiliency plan was not.
Let's put Nicole
Okay, Nicole, we have asked Nicole Sharp to speak at this meeting as we are looking to get some staff direction on working with Aptum to put a coastal resiliency plan together, working in tandem with the efforts that have already been going on with the Sea Level Rise Committee through the community panel. So we've asked Nicole to speak and get some staff direction on working with Aptum to put a plan in place to work with the other groups.
It's very involved in this too.
Yeah,
He's on the
yeah, excuse me, let me preface this. We've asked Nicole that, because these things take a couple of months, to propose to the CEPD a coastal resiliency plan that is permittable. And that in addition to that, because we have other entities that we have donated and given grants of money to, that she will interact with them and attend meetings, et cetera, to take advantage of the other people working on this project. So I wouldn't, you could say in tandem, but this isn't like, oh, this is our person, now you all work together and you're all in charge. No. This is, want to get a proposal from a very prestigious engineering firm that has a staff committed, an office committed to coastal resiliency. And we just want to get 100% organized with an engineering firm that this is what they do. Just like we use Captain for beach renourishment. And so, and the extra added thing is that already Nicole is talking to the others to see what they can do. So go ahead, Nicole, take it away. I just wanted to explain to fill in the little words that I don't know if Jennifer, because in tandem to me is very different than you're in charge and these people understand that if you work for CEPD, right? CEPD is the one that gets the permit. So C would be the alpha.
Right, well, I think that because you've had a sea level rise committee that's been in place prior to me, prior to us involving Aptim in this, I think it's important to note the research they've already done. And again, whatever we develop needs to work in tandem with what's already happening. And I believe the goal of the next meeting is to discuss roles and responsibilities of who's doing what piece, because I brought that part up after Nicole Sharp and I met with Carrie Schumann from SCCF, when it became clear that, we weren't aware of who had what piece and what was going to happen moving forward. So with that, I think we should let Nicole speak and talk a little bit about what a proposal would look like. Nicole? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me here today. I also have Dr. Samantha Danchuk with me. We lost internet in our office and somehow I'm the only one with it. So Sam's right here next to me. So if you hear another voice, that's Dr. Danchuk chiming in. But with Aptim, we have been your coastal engineering consultant for many years. We also have a resiliency program that works cohesively with our coastal engineers to develop plans for coastal resiliency and just resiliency overall through the project life cycle. So Sam, if you want to just discuss a little bit about our resiliency program that we have in Florida and just the components of what a proposal might look like. I know they want to ensure that there's protection on their ocean side, which we do currently with their beach renourishment program, but also implementing strategies on the island and the back bay to make sure that they're capable of adapting and managing climate change and sea level rise.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Apologies for oh, that works. So I'm Dr. Samantha Danchuk. I'm joining you from local government recently. I just joined Aptim. I was the former Associate Chief Resilience Officer for Broward County for the past 7 years, setting policy on future conditions and planning for sea level rise. I helped develop the Southeast Florida Regional Climate Change Unified Sea Level Rise Projection. And my background is in coastal engineering and computational fluid dynamics. So this is my area of interest. I left local government because this could not be more critical time for local communities to start setting up what I call their resilient capital improvement plans, with the idea of looking very carefully at what your opportunities are for adaptation to climate change, looking at the return on investment. So doing a very specific analysis to understand the cost benefits of each of the improvements that make sense for you. Looking both at your natural resources, the infrastructure on your island, and how your program aligns with the funding that is coming forward. There's funding both at the federal, the state, and the local level. The county is already engaged in a lot of these mechanisms. Obviously, you have other folks that you're collaborating with, and there's so much going on right now that it's really important for you to make careful steps and understand all the pieces coming together, have someone that's well connected, and able to kind of slot these pieces at the right time and phase your adaptation for you. So really looking at the resources that you have, identifying what your vulnerabilities are, computing the risks, being able to look at the risks and identify what the investments are, and then compare those to decide what you want for the short term, what you want to do in the next 5 years, 10 years, and then make sure that you understand what the changes are going to be over the next 20 years or maybe even 50 years, depending on your outlook. And it's important because obviously you're a policy setting board to make sure that everything that you're doing aligns with you being sustainable and resilient over time. And so we're bringing that expertise to kind of advise you in all those arenas. and give you the opportunity to make the critical decisions that you need to make today to set you up for a very positive future. And we'll take any questions if you have any, if that's not specific enough of a proposal, but it's really the idea of prioritizing and laying out those projects that you need to, giving the information that you need so that you can make wise decisions.
Samantha, hi, my name is Renee, I'm the chairman. We're looking for not just proposals for how it will affect us or what, you know, a lot of the things you just mentioned, because there is a full-time person at the SCCF. That's kind of her job, what she's doing. That's why I said, Nicole, understanding that there are parties already, as Jennifer said, in tandem working on that. What we're looking for is actual implementation of some kind of green structure so that a proposal is made with deliverables that clearly state, okay, this is what's being used here, here, and here. We think this would be best for your island. It's going to cost this much. We're going to get, it's going to take X amount of time to permit. We really, everyone is saying the same thing. Well, we have to, you know, look at the studies and talk about how it's going to affect you. We know how sea level rise is going to affect us. We want to know, are we going to be the first to have some kind of green structure created so that we can think of the backside? This is like going back 30 years ago and saying, well, you need beach renourishment, but we're going to find out how it affects and what the people think. You know, it's like, no, we need the sand. We need the sand on the beach. And how do we get the sand on the beach? So what I'm trying to say is we want Aptum to give us a proposal that states that this is what we think we can achieve. This is how we'll achieve it. A permittable engineering proposal that's probably going to take 2 or 3 years, probably going to take a couple of months to even propose, with the additional caveat that there are a couple of groups working already, and that if you would be so kind as to utilize their existing data. And so it's like a team, but we're hiring the big team, which is you all, which are one of the bigger and better engineering firms. And as I said previously, but I can't emphasize enough that we want to know that from the, if should we accept the proposal, that from that minute forward, we know we're going to do our part, but that your job is to end up with a permittable plan. And of course, there'll be charrettes where people will see what you're accomplishing, but the study and the data about how sea level rise will affect us, we want to build. You know, I don't know how to be more succinct about it, but we just don't want to be, you know, we're ready for action. And we know action is going to take 2 to 4 years, but we want to start planning now and mobilize now in a permittable context. And we are having people to work on it. So think of this when they, in Nevada, when they made the atomic bomb, when all the scientists filed together, but there was someone in charge, the alpha dog, or the alpha, and that would be you two being the high priestesses, should we, you know, agree. But I just want to be crystal clear on that we're, because, you know,
We're looking for a project.
thank you. We're looking for a project.
We're looking for something that we can do on Captiva.
Right.
That will make the island more resilient.
Right.
And there are different things kind of going on the Rauschenberg property, for example. Right now, they are doing something with mangrove. You know, they're removing the buildings away from the bayside and going to build their administrative headquarters down the street from me.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've seen that spot. It's huge that they cleared for the.
No, they cleared it. I didn't see that.
Yeah, you don't get to the north, up there.
Once in a while.
with the little red
I
fish.
met you on the street once. I said, I've been here 40 years. I know.
But
it
anyway,
sounds-
I think we're in agreement.
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
we
Renee,
wanna-
can I make a comment? This is John.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
Thank you. We touched upon this before at a prior meeting, and I certainly welcome Renee and Dick on this. We don't need another study. we have enough studies. What we really want is within, I'd say, 6 months or a year, I want something that is a reasonable plan that we can go to some experts, they can review it, and then we can apply for funds. I can't emphasize that enough. I don't think we need, I know we don't need more studies. We need a plan.
Your message is received, and that's exactly what we're proposing. And that's what we're helping other communities do is these resilient capital improvement plans that are overlapped with the funding strategy. And it's very clear that the adaptation project list that's proposed is cost effective and is giving you the benefits that you need for greater coastal and flood protection.
The other
Right,
point,
and also,
formidable.
we need
And
to keep
formidable.
it- we need to keep in mind, Commissioner Sylvia, as well as Dr. Danchek, that, we've had a sea level rise committee that's been going on. And I think their biggest concern is that we may not be ready to implement because we still have to do more adaptation studies. Forgive me, I'm not a scientist. So I just want to make sure that whatever we do complements what's already happening. And that way we're not duplicating efforts.
Right, duplicate.
Yeah, but Jennifer, let me say the following.
Yes.
One, we can't have studies going on forever.
Right.
I appreciate there are other organizations doing things. So I would simply say to them, get on and do it. Don't give me another 6 months, 2 years of studies. That's not acceptable to me. I will not support that. Second, I will say to the respective representatives here, one of the challenges of being on the what I would say the sound size is that properties vary significantly with respect to their exposure. So it's going to be a little tricky to figure out how we're going to treat different properties in different ways. But I do respect other organizations, but I oftentimes feel as people study, they keep on getting their grant money and nothing ever gets done. And if there's really a problem, and I'll go back to Dan's graph that he gave me some time ago, if it's 6 inches or whatever it is, a decade, we can't spend the next decade and then worry about, okay, everything's getting flooded. That just doesn't work for me. We need to move ahead with doing something.
Excuse me, Samantha, are there existing studies out there that show the effects of mangrove islands where there's been some like living structure put on, or maybe, are there examples already out there? And also, are there examples of areas that they already are ahead of us and they've got certain things permitted? I would love to be brought up to speed to find out what's actually out there, what's been done, what's been not done, what's in process. I understand this is all new, but my question is, your firm, they have a whole division responsible for this, and could you just tell us what is in the works currently, or will you guys in any way, shape, or form have any permittable engineering plans for anywhere at this point?
Sure. So combination mangroves plus some sort of hard structure are being permitted across the state with sea level rise factored in. So there have been some innovative techniques in allowing for crib design where you can kind of stack rock or riprap to try and add to it over time as sea level rises. So an adaptable design. There's consideration of having terraced or kind of stepped interface, depending on what kind of need you have for the wall itself. If you wanted to be, to have a sidewalk, if you wanted to be part of, existing infrastructure.
Right.
So there's lots of different things. We absolutely could prepare a presentation to kind of show you some of the examples. But there are both small and large types of projects that can be added to mangroves in order to make them kind of redundantly resilient. So
what
the
we
mangroves,
need in the proposal for, let's say, because Nicole and I have spoken about this, and she feels it's going to take a couple of years, where when it's said and done and the community has seen all the progress, then we're ready to go and get the permit, so to speak. So in your proposal, I think it's really important to make it as Captiva specific as possible.
Right.
And the only final thing is in the early 80s, at the beginning of the island, there was a problem because the water was rushing in so much. The first 3 houses were going to fall into the water. And what they did was they used riprap and then planted mangroves. And I got to tell you, it's the most spectacular example of an existing living seawall for the first 500 feet. So it's just so funny that in many areas, the answer might be right there. Like you said, adding on, but something the Captivians can relate to. And also, innovative designs like, what are the Dutch thinking of? And they come up with the anti-gravitational ray and all that crazy stuff, which they don't. I'm just being facetious. But it's just really important that as a large firm as you are, when we do our beach renourishment, we have found, we say, get her done. Here it is, let's go. And they interface with the various agencies, and whenever they interface, things get done quicker than all the people who aren't the experienced professionals interface, and then things get askew. So my question is, it's really important to keep in mind in your presentation what exists already for, and also I would like to find out, there's going to be a lot of pushback not pushback, but there are people that have lawns, and then they have mangroves, and then there's the water. And they don't really understand that they're going to lose their lawn and the water's going to be under their house in 1 foot. So with those examples, are there any, with those situations in hand, do you people already have existing renderings of how they first install a bit of a wall so the water doesn't permeate into the lawn, and then do the riprap and the mangroves are there already? Because some people are going to say, so I guess what I'm saying is there's a lot of people in Captiva that think they know what they think they need, and there's people that have needs where they don't want to lose their existing yard. For those, because people might say we just have to add 5 elevated feet of fill, and that's not going to work. So I'm just saying that, and then at the same time, like Jennifer said, there is our panel that has spent a couple of years now, or 3 years. They did a vulnerability study. Nicole, how is that study, by the way, the vulnerability study? Does that help us in your work? Going
Yes.
forward?
So both Samantha and I have reviewed the vulnerability study, and it identified, areas that were vulnerable. So, we wouldn't be recreating the wheel with that study. We would go off of what, the community panel and Cheryl Hapke and her group have done already. And then, we'd be collaborating with them along the way.
So
it's an open dialogue, and that's what's really important.
Okay, good. No, that's a question. Does anyone else have any questions? So do we want to vote to, it's just a proposal. It's not, can we get a motion on to propose that Aptum make a presentation? Nicole, how long do you think it would take? A couple of months, or what do you think?
For us, I think it'll be a little bit of back and forth with the proposal at first to make sure we have identified all the components that you really want to see in there. So I'd say it'll probably be maybe, especially we're coming on the holiday season, a 2 to maybe 3 month process, nailing down the key components you want to see in the proposal. And then when it's completed, we'd be able to present it to the board to let them know exactly what we're thinking and walk them through it. Because it is a big investment, but it's like Sam and I can attest to that it's cheaper to plan and adapt now than to respond later to sea level rise and climate change.
10 times more to react than it is to prepare. Those are the
Correct.
current numbers, I believe.
Yes.
All right, so Jennifer, do we need a vote on that, or it's just?
Not really. What
No.
you would need to do is just, we're clear on direction. I think, Nicole, you're clear on next steps. And then what we would do is, once we have the proposal, I would imagine we would do a workshop, educate everyone and then you would vote on the proposal.
Okay, good. And Nicole, can we switch gears for a second? Did you find out anything regarding the fencing for the seagrass?
Yes, so I looked at the 2013 project and we did see that the rope and fence post was a little under $5 per linear foot to put that up. So we didn't
Those
put
were
this
big
along the
posts and
whole.
big ropes though.
So we didn't put the rope and fence posts along the whole island. We just surrounded primary access points
Right.
to guide the public out of them. And it pretty much trained the public to stay off the dunes. A lot of the private access points weren't roped off unless it was identified as a problematic or high traffic area or a large rental area.
Okay, but that's kind of hinting, well, we can, if we go with the old plan, we just do the access points. But I think there's a lot of private owners that are going to shell out there anywhere from $25,000 to $70,000 would be really appreciative. Is there a way we can do something about this big with a rope off so it's, it'll protect the dune? Because where I live, there's lots of people just walking around. We talked about that. In other words, a mini version, you could do a maxi version at 5 linear. But what do you think we could get for the private areas where we can rope off the front side, not their egress side, but the entrance, but the link is, we're talking 4 miles.
Yes, so we can rope off the front side. We just have to follow the DEP guidelines on that. The fence posts, should be spaced a certain distance apart. Typically, we see about 5 feet
there.
there.
Is there a diameter issue, or can you use a less expensive pole? There's a big difference between a 4-inch diameter and like a 3-inch 2-footer with a little, it's like 1/10, well, 1/5 the cost. I'm just saying, can we, value engineer this where it's not like a $50,000 thing?
We can try to economize it as much as possible. There are certain regulations that we do have to meet to make sure the sea turtles are protected. Even though it's rope, we do have to ensure that's a certain height above the ground. It could cause entrapment of a turtle. So we want to ensure that we have all those safety protocols in place for the nesting sea turtles.
To your knowledge, since you're the engineer, you studied this stuff in school. What is the minimum height? I mean, do you think it has to be, can we get a less beefy post and rope than the last time for private people?
I've seen slightly smaller posts on other projects, so we can definitely go a little bit smaller there. Height wise, I believe we have to be at least a foot off the ground for the rope.
You had them up much higher than that before.
I think it was about 3 or 4 feet for the last project. So we can, try to implement something less robust, but still providing the protective front layer to keep the public from just walking straight up onto the dunes.
So we can, all right, well, if you could, because, time is of the essence. Is there, because if it's $5 a foot, if we did the entire island, that would be $80,000.
25,000 feet, was it 25,000 feet?
Would there be area? Yeah. So 25 times 100 and a quarter. So you're saying go big, right? I mean, we did say, we paid $800,000 less than the maximum allowable amount because you thought it was going to be $925, and it's $825. So that's a savings of $600,000. Am I correct? From
Correct,
the big
yes.
number. All right,
Correct.
So
the project is coming under budget also because we didn't have to do sea turtle relocation trawling. So that's another component, and we didn't have to do any sediment remediation. So we didn't use those aspects either. So you will be coming in under the budget on those
Let
areas.
me ask our treasurer, do you think that would be a wise choice to do the normal, nice poles, and along the whole line?
I like that idea, because it's giving people a cue as to where you could come onto the beach, where you should, I like what we did the last time.
Okay, so John, did you hear us? We're gonna
Yeah.
make an executive decision here to not step over dollars to pick up pennies. Are you in?
Yes,
All right, Do we need to call a vote to give you the change order? And you do the good ones, 5 a foot and possibly less. Work your magic.
So are we looking to do a change order to Great Lakes current contract? Or are we looking
Well,
to
we're
put
hoping
this
you
out
would
to bid
say
as
I
a
can
separate
go to Great-
project?
No, I was hoping you would say we can go to Great Lakes, see if they'll do it. If not, we can get someone else and I'll try to get it under $5 a linear foot through the whole line. That's what I want to hear.
Okay, well, we can start with Great Lakes first, so we'll reach out to them and see if it's feasible that we can get Earth Balance to come in and do it. So that will be
Okay.
after I get off the meeting today. I'll reach out to them and see if
Okay.
it's possible for a change order to do that.
Okay, thank you. And basically, you heard from the three of us. We didn't make it. Should we make it a motion and a vote, or do you want to, or do you? what do we need?
Probably safer to do that, I defer to Ralph, but I like this way safer.
You don't need to at this time. We'll do it later when it comes back in.
All right, so we need a vote? No, it's the end of the meeting, a vote, but please proceed, and then we can, all right. And then the final question is, Dick said that we have the implants have gel in them, so that they're, oh, good, okay, great, just double check, because we're twice cut once. And because a concerned citizen was worried about why do we plan during the dry season? And that's a great answer, so we had a big trouble, that's great, all right, super duper, happy. So let's make it happen, and it's a fashion runway, let's get to work. Did you ever see Fashion Runway?
I did. I really enjoyed that show.
I knew it. I knew it.
I did the British baking show.
Oh, that's the best. That's even better. All right, anything else, Nicole, or are we good?
Yeah, can I just say,
Yes, sir.
Renee, that with respect to what they may come up with in 2 or 3 months, I would like 2 items. One, tell me what Rauschenberg's really trying to do. Are they dealing with 3 inches, 6 inches, or a foot of sea level rise? And what's their goal? And then the other one is, what projects have we seen around the state that are already in place? So that's 2 things.
Well, Dick's going to answer the Rauschenberg thing, and Nicole is going to show us some examples of what's being done thus far. And if you want to see the best example of what's going to be done, go to Blind Pass on the Bayside and look at the first 600 feet of what was done 30 years ago. And you see riprap 3 feet up and 18-foot mangroves that weren't cut. That is an example of a living seawall that cost a few $1,000s. And there's one person still alive that we can talk to that helped organize the situation, which maybe we'll get him on one of those little videos going or something. But it's just funny. Sometimes the answer is right funny. But Dave will answer the Rauschenberg thing.
Well, I talked to Ann Bradley and, or Ann Brady, she was thinking the library. And what they've done, if you go by that area, you can tell that they put about a 3 foot, they kind of raised up about 3 feet. And then they're going to build on 1 story, a 6,500 square foot building. It's going to act as dormitories, cafeteria, and their general offices. And what they're going to be able to do then with that facility is move some of the cottages that were right up against the Bayside. And then that'll allow the Bayside to return to its natural mangrove swamp area. And the only thing we're losing is the helicopter pad. But they'll figure out how to take me off the island again the next time I have a seizure.
I offered we own the property that's absolutely perfect for that. It's, we own 16969.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, you want to buy it?
You know where that Osprey Court is?
Yeah, that's the Roberts family own that. They use that for now.
Yeah,
Which is
they've used that.
Yeah. All right, good. And what Nicole, thank you. I'm your biggest fan, as you know. So don't disappoint me. I don't want to be unhappy.
We won't.
I know you won't. And great job on this beach renourishment.
Yes,
We're almost there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We're almost there, another day or so. We'll be out there tomorrow to look at it and just make sure everything's good and do a final walkthrough. And
Now,
note
Samantha's
anything.
gonna visit us too, so I can show her my,
Yeah.
40-year-old hand Italian espresso maker with a hand press. And she comes to visit. Best espresso on the island, I assure you. Okay, so we're good. All right, so let's go to the administrative. Thank you so much, ladies. Administrative report. Your
Yes.
host.
So we had a very successful dredge boat ride. You may have seen some of the photographs on social media. Our state rep attended, Adam Bertana. He was excellent. His staff member came. Nicole was with us, Dan was with us, Holly Smith, Mayor of Sanibel was with us, and also two members from Keighley County Beautiful. And it was a very successful boat ride. We had a lunch after. Jay Brown took everyone to lunch, which was very kind. And we had a great discussion, open discussion with our representative regarding the sewer, water sewer connectivity, as well as the project moving forward. So that was all very beneficial. As I already mentioned, the annual economic study, that's something that we're gonna propose for 2022, that we do those annually versus every 8 years, so that we don't have to, we have more of a baseline year over year. And as I mentioned in my last administrative report, Nicole, with the help of Dan, submitted an abstract for the Florida Shore Beach Preservation Association Technical Conference in February in St. Augustine. And we're all looking forward to them being accepted.
What
So
was
that
the subject of that?
it was our renourishment project.
It was.
So we plan to highlight the before and the after of the project, to highlight the flexible language that we built into the contract to allow us to receive, the great price that we got, the design of the construction, our public outreach to social media and GIS, and then our funding sources, and we're gonna go into the apportionment model a little bit because we're a little unique.
Yeah, okay, great.
Yep. And the last thing is my performance review, which is coming up. I'm working on Dan's right now, finalizing his and his new contracts. Our contracts expire after 1 year. So I've been working on those, so I'm not sure. I sent a blank form to our chairman, and I'm not sure what your
Wait,
protocol
how did you
is.
send it?
Email,
Okay.
but I'm not sure what your protocol is with past administrators.
Well, I think what we did is everyone would get one and they fill it out
Mhm.
and everyone would throw in their 2 cents.
Okay, then I'm happy to
And then they
send,
did it on like MailChimp or something. I don't know what that. Or you can take it.
I'll just send the form and you all can fill that out and then
Right.
send it back and then figure out how you want to review it with me.
Right.
Okay,
I've never done that. Usually I just, when I don't like someone, I say, so let's discuss your exit strategy. Okay.
I'm not scared, trust me. Okay, great. Well,
Yeah.
that's it. That's all I got.
Okay, is there anything else? Yes, Mark, the filmmaker, called me.
Uh-huh.
And he wanted 2 things. He wanted to film the dredges out on the boats. Don't those guys go back and forth on the boat? Can they take them?
They can't with COVID. So it is my understanding that Laura, I know you're on this call, that you'd maybe offered that Seth could take him out. Her husband. He has a boat.
Nice.
So I don't know if that's still a possibility, Laura. We did tell Mark to contact you directly when he came in this morning.
Okay. I saw him with the construction hat on. Was he?
Yeah, he was out there today. Okay,
Okay. Also, I have, I'll just share with you this idea. Laurie, can you hear this, please? Can you put her on the speaker?
Laura,
She there?
I don't know if she's still,
Well, she's got a mute button on. Probably not there. Better be, otherwise no pay, no attention, no pay. She's paid by the hour, right?
Mhm.
Keep her on the straight and narrow. Is she there?
And
Laura.
that's her.
Are you there? And then here comes, oh, there was something wrong with my internet. All right, she doesn't have to be on, but she should hear this. Okay, so Dick, you would like hearing this. I was trying to figure out how to communicate with the islanders what sea level rise is and how it affects individually. So I thought, Richard, it would be very, very nice to have, there she is. Hey, Laura. Put her on But just
Sorry,
be-
guys. Sorry.
okay.
My
You
child
look
had a crisis.
All right, listen, Laura, I wanted to share with you, and because I never got an opportunity to call you directly, but I think your media skills are really good, and I think there's been a really nice improvement in the community awareness that people don't go on websites anymore. They go to their Instagram, they go to their Facebook, and as every day progresses, more people chime in. So what we wanted to accomplish, I think, is and I spoke with Mark about it, the guy's done some films for us, is I think it would be very nice to put a very simple awareness program, and not talking about sea level rise, but like filming. Mark could film and make it kind of fun and exciting, but like, for example, he'd come to my house and I could say, hey, look, see the dock, look at the fish, oh, wow, look at that snook, and then say, hey, so here's our problem. We have the mangroves and we have, they say, look at my lawn here. So in 5 years, this lawn might be filled with water. So what do we do about it? You know, and then in 2 years, I don't have a garage anymore. So in other words, make it like 15 seconds and then maybe a quick thing, but there are some answers, you know, again, the video, where then they say, so tune in for next week's, but make it like a fun little thing where people say, hey, this is really cool. I'm going to keep track. So what happens is the community sees that the CEPD is reaching out to everybody saying, this is the physical issue right now. Because usually, you know, people have meetings, scientists talk, reports are made, people read them, sometimes they don't read them, but a 20-second or a 15-second little quick thing, and then we think of other ideas, or like Dan can do something, you know, Jennifer. So the idea is we make it Mayberry R&D-like, where, you know, we do videos of us, and people recommend, they like that, you know, and they say, hey, you know, they say, oh, look at these beach, look at these, oh, look, yeah, well, let's see, it's 4 months, and look, remember last week it was this big, look at it, it's this big, yay, beach, you know, beach doing things like that. It's fun, it takes 10 seconds, and people say, oh, that's what makes Captiva cool. What made Jensen's cool when it was under the Jensen dynasty is that they were always on the edge of a good laugh. And the place was always just very funky. It always kept like that. They used to do the mullet march and all these things. But people relate to Captiva and they think of those things. So we don't want to get too corporate, too scientific. We want to reach out to these people on a very, you know, fun level. So we just wanted to prepare you, that's coming your way. And this is not going to be any real expense, but I think it's going to have real reach. And we just wanted to let you know that's what we're thinking about.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I agree with that.
What do you think?
I think it's you know, a step in the right direction. I definitely think that people connect a lot more and relate a lot more when they are taken you know, along for the ride, if you will. So I think it would be very beneficial to show, also to connect it to something tangible, like, you know, one of you guys, somebody's house, you know, they've seen you, they've heard your name, stuff like that. So it's something that's tangible and real to them as opposed to just a picture. So yeah, I agree with that. I think that it would be cool, and I can certainly brainstorm on my end some ideas how to generate some fun posts that would encourage discussion and interaction overall. So I think that's a good plan.
I want to make one comment. We shouldn't spend an inordinate amount of time talking about sea level rise, because it's going to scare the realtors half to death. So balanced approach. We're going to be here for a number of years,
Right.
And we're taking action to make sure we're going to be here.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, we'll do that. You're right. I don't want to scare people. That's what Fox News does.
Yeah.
So, and John, when they do you can talk about something and then, you know, maybe give a bond tip. You know, the best fund manager is the lady at the bank up the street. If you knew her positions, and one of her best positions is something Commissioner Pyle told her to do about, what, 7 years ago? She's up like 900%. You know that, right? She's killing it. So anyway, you know, we really, like you said, identify with these people, but Captiva is also humor and happiness.
Yeah. Motion to adjourn.
Motion, okay. And so, well, you know. Anyway, so that's it, folks. There's nothing else, right? There's no commissioner comment. Anyone else want to get on the soapbox? John, you good?
I'm good, sir.
All right, so motion to adjourn. I'll motion it. Second, someone second. Okay, all in favor? All right, goodbye. Thank you very much. That's it.